Chinese left it too long to address the changeover in the growth model that they have to adopt. Hard landing is practically unavoidable.
Are you surprised?
I have some good news for you today. No, it has nothing to do with Hillary. We all know she's gone, she's done, she's kaput. The good news I'm going to share with you today has to do with George Soros. He's not well. His mind is gone. There's many names for it. Old-timers, all-timers, senile. Frankly put, George Soros is losing his mind. We'll get to that later. But what I must tell you is this: no matter what happens in the future, if the banks go down tomorrow, the game goes on. The people in the club never give up. They always stay in control. As long as they control the central banks, they can control everybody, and that includes George Soros, that includes Hillary. But when they're done with you, they're done with you. The point I'm trying to make here is there is a small club. They control the central banks, they control the money, and they also control George Soros. George Soros was in the club, but he wasn't at the top. He was not at the top. He was a tool. The CIA used him. The intelligence communities used him. Any government that got the okay from the club could use George Soros and his money. And Soros was all too happy to help. He was part of the system. But I'm telling you that George is now being sacrificed. Hillary's gone. She's over. She's done. Forget about Hillary. But George Soros and his money, well, that's a whole different ballgame. George is going to be retired, sacrificed. Lots of things will be blamed on George Soros. I'm telling you this today because you're going to hear lots of things. You've even heard me talk about it. Soros this and Soros that. It's because George Soros is sick. He's being sacrificed. Make no mistake about it. The club is still in charge, and they will always stay in charge as long as they control the central banks. There are other people who are being sacrificed also. Hillary and Obama's friends over in Europe, they're all being sacrificed. The story I'm going to tell you today is something that you may not be aware of, because there's one man in the game that is not going to be sacrificed. There's one man in the game who I think of as the locust tree. He is flexible. He actually sat around and watched for 8 years. This man that I'm going to be talking about later on in the video, he sat around for 8 years, and he was in the catbird seat, and he watched Obama literally destroy our country, and he just sat there patiently. He kept his mouth shut for the most part. But he is not being sacrificed. He is not being eliminated. He is being groomed for the next role in his life. That role will be senior leadership in the club. Much like Henry Kissinger today. But again, just like George Soros is being retired, Henry Kissinger is on his last legs also. So they need the next round of leadership. Joseph Biden will fill that role. Joe Biden is your typical American. He's pragmatic. He opens his mouth occasionally and inserts his foot. That's what us Americans do. But don't underestimate him, because he is the locust branch of flexibility. That is ingrained into his soul. He has watched his loved ones fall. In this brutal yin and yang world that we live in, he has seen pain, but yet he has persevered. That's why they have chose him for the senior leadership, because the pressure in his life was applied down upon him, but he did not snap, he bent. Just like the locust tree, it did not snap, it bent. That's why I call him the locust branch of flexibility. You may not know this. If you do not come from the coal country, you would not know that down in the coal mines, They do not use the strong oak tree pillars to keep the ceiling up. No, they don't use oak wood down in the mines. They use the locust tree as pillars. And the locust tree holds up the ceiling of the mines under tons and tons of the weight of the earth above. And the reason why they use the locust tree is because it bends. When the pressure is applied, it does not snap, it bends. And that's why they have picked Joseph Biden for his next role.
And with a vision that we build and sustains the liberal international order. And the impulse is to hunker down, shut the gates, build walls, exit at this moment.
You will hear that over and over as we analyze Joseph Biden today. The liberal international order. You're looking at their shills, these tools. These politicians are nothing more than shills and tools. They are being eliminated. They're being sacrificed. There'll be a new breed that will emerge. Joseph Biden will be in the senior leadership of picking this new breed of politician that will emerge. This is very important because they understand that the world is changing. But what is the most important part to take away from this message today? That Joseph Biden will not break, he will not snap, he will bend. As he sat there in the catbird seat and he watched Obama destroy the country, he sat there with a smile on his face and he just watched it and kept his mouth shut for the most part. I'm telling you, because he does his job. He's flexible like the locust tree. He bends with the wind. He's the perfect man for the job. Do not underestimate him as we go forward. We're going to analyze his words. He's going to give us some insight into how they feel today, how the club is going to go forward. Remember, the club is not going to give up. As long as they control the central banks, they're in charge. But they are going to bend. They are going to change. They're going to change with the wind. They're going to steal some of our ideas. Some of the things you've heard me talk about in the past, they will steal these ideas. They'll do anything to stay in power. They don't care about the ideology as long as they keep the money and as long as they stay in power. Joseph Biden will help us understand them today.
But this year, in these early days of 2017, there is a palpable uncertainty about the state of the world.
Oh, they may be dumb, but they're not stupid. They know there's change in the wind, and they're ready to bend. They realize that we are the resistance. They realize that you and I no longer want to play their game. That's why everybody voted for Donald Trump. But they're not giving up yet. As long as they control the money, they're still in the game.
Whether we reinforce the ties that bind us, or whether we unravel under the current pressures.
Those current pressures he talks about are you and I. Every one of us. All 95 million of us Americans who are out of the workforce. Do your research. There are 95 million Americans no longer in the workforce. Joseph Biden knows this all too well. He says, are we going to unravel or are we going to be strong like Joseph Biden and bend in the wind like a locust tree?
Instead of sorting the world into winners and losers, our careful, and I mean careful attention to building and sustaining the liberal international world order.
The club is going to pick Joseph Biden. They're going to put him in a position of leadership. He will have that role. He does not know everything. Joseph Biden is going to be told things that may scare the living hell out of him, because there will be winners and there will be losers going forward. That's the thing that's going to scare 74-year-old Joseph Biden, because he's right. In the past, when we gave Europe billions and billions of dollars and we rebuilt Europe and we rebuilt Japan, we gave them our money and we wanted them to be our friends. We picked the winners and losers. Going forward, winners and losers will be picked more on their intelligence level, their strength, how they play the game. Putin and China will be at the top of this game because they have the money, they have the intelligence, and they are the chess masters. Joseph Biden will be filled in on this as we go. As we go along, Joseph Biden will be told the rules of the game. But yes, there are going to be winners and losers picked in the future. And again, you hear him talk about the liberal international order, because there has been one, but now it's going to be changed to something different. It's going to be an international order of winners and losers. Joseph Biden is giving us a little hint of that fact.
In recent years, it's become very evident that the consensus upholding this system is beginning to face incredible and increasing pressures from both within our countries and without.
Again, Joseph Biden speaks the truth. We are experiencing extreme pressures from within and without. From within, you and I are the pressure. From within, you and I are the resistance. And we also look up to strong men like Putin, and we think Obama is weak. This is a problem for them.
At our own peril that we ignore or dismiss the legitimate fears and anxieties that exist in communities all across the developed world. The concerns of mothers and fathers how they feel about losing that factory job that has always allowed them to provide for their families, and the expectation that their children would even have a better life. Parents who don't believe they can give their children a better life than they had. My dad used to have an expression. He said, "Joey, your job is about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity."
Again, he is correct. At your own peril. Beware when there are 95 million Americans out of work. Beware, because the pressures are building. What you will see them do is they will print more and more fake money, and they will try to make fake jobs. When that fails, then you will see something more elaborate. There may even be free money given out, that you will not even have to work. They're discussing that right now, that everybody gets a living wage. No more welfare, no more pensions. They just give you the money. They give you $20,000. Do as you please. You don't need a job. That's what's coming down the road if we're going to have robots doing our job. Lots of things in the works. But they do know that if they do not give the people money, that there will be chaos.
An awful lot of people who felt that way a decade ago aren't so sure. These are pressures that are undermining the support for the liberal international order from inside. Globalization has not been an unalloyed good. I am a free trader. I am a strong supporter of globalization. But it has deepened the rift between those racing ahead at the top and those struggling to hang on in the middle or falling to the bottom.
Again, you hear Biden talk that their system is falling apart. You hear him say pressures that are undermining the liberal international order. He says it over and over and over. The liberal international order. They are losing control unless they're able to get that money into your hands. Unless they are able to get that money into my hands, they're going to lose everything. They realize this. They're not going to lose everything because they control the central banks. All they're going to do is give Donald Trump as much money as he wants, make those fake jobs, put all those angry people like you and me, put them in a job and everybody will be happy, but it'll all be created with fake money from the central banks. At some point in the game, it's all going to come collapsing down. But yet, the game goes on. Like I said, they're not going to give up yet.
1 year ago, I spoke here at Davos about the challenges we face mastering the fourth industrial revolution.
What he means is the fourth turning. They sometimes speak in code. Yes, he's talking about the fourth turning. Remember that when your great-grandfather left, and your grandfather left, and they died, they took all that wisdom with them. That's how you have the turning, the first turning, the second turning, the third turning, and we are now into the fourth turning where it all changes. They know that. Now they speak in code words. That's what it's all about. How are they going to prepare for this big change that's obvious? It's all around us.
Meanwhile, many communities in the developed world that have long depended on manufacturing, the opposite is true. Their relative standard of living has declined. They feel shut out of opportunities. Their economic security feels jeopardized. And taken together, these forces are effectively hollowing out the middle class, the traditional engine of economic growth, and I might add, of social stability in Western nations.
Are you starting to hear a pattern here with Joseph Biden? Meanwhile, in the developed world, things are falling apart. Social order is collapsing. We must use our tools. People like George Soros, we must use our tools, our billions of dollars. We must get control over the masses. Things are falling apart. The liberal international order is at risk. What shall we do? There is a problem. Yes, they know it.
We also have given hateful individuals a megaphone to spread their virulent extremist ideologies. They do the same in the ungoverned spaces of the internet.
And as long as there are hateful people out there like Bravo von Mueller, the internet is not a safe place.
In this case, using Islamophobic, anti-Semitic, xenophobic rhetoric to stir fear, sow division, and advance their own agendas.
It just gets better and better, doesn't it? Yes, here Biden takes a page out of the Hillary Clinton playbook and basically calls us deplorables. Didn't actually use the word, but that's what he meant. We're deplorable.
And with a vision that we built and sustains the liberal international order. And the impulse is to hunker down, shut the gates, build walls, exit at this moment is precisely the wrong answer.
Yes, there's many of them that want to hunker down, many of them that want to head for the hills and hide. But the club that controls the central banks, they're not going to hide. They're just going to spread the money out and try to get you and I back on their side. That's their game plan. They have to convince you and I to get back in the game. Good luck with that.
In the Middle East, where China and Iran would clearly prefer a world in which they have overwhelming sway in their regions. And I'll not mince words. This movement is principally led by Russia. Under President Putin.
What he is trying to say is this, that Turkey is now joining the Chinese, Russian, Persian alliance, and now the balance of power is changing forever. As we wasted trillions and trillions of dollars with our thumb up our ass out in some desert fighting Zionist wars for our master. The world has changed all around us, and now we have to bend. We have to change.
Or take for granted that this success will continue without an awful lot of really hard work and investment. It's only by championing the liberal international order, by continuing to invest in our security, reaffirming our shared values, expanding the cause of liberty around the world, that we are going to retain our position of leadership. Because if we don't fight for our values, no one else will. The idea of Europe whole and free and at peace, in my opinion, constitutes one of the most audacious, consequential visions of the past century.
But I'm afraid it's now time to end this story. Joseph Biden did not let me down, even in the end, when an anonymous hacker came into the system and shut the power down. Joseph Biden kept on going. He just bent like that flexible locust tree. Joseph Biden is not to be underestimated Because even as the power went down, even as the hacker took the power away, Joseph Biden kept on talking. This is why we call him Mr. Flexible, like a locust branch. He will be there in a leadership role for the club that controls all the money in the central banks, international banks across the world, not just America, international banks across the world.